Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel, and today we're looking at a Patreon's question regarding how you would make miniature barrels to use in miniature work such as model trucks and having this as the cargo on the back. We're going to be using the part workbench, and also we're going to be using the Lattice 2 workbench as well, so we need this installed before we start on our journey in creating these. We'll be going through creating this barrel and also how it would look when you export it out as an STL format or whatever object format you're actually looking at. So this is just basic STL, just standard output, and we've got that there. So I hope you're enjoying these videos, and let's have a look how we would model this. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. For this video, we're in FreeCAD and we can create a new document. And we're going to be using the part workbench for this one. And the reason is because I want the model to be made of separate sections. So we're looking at multiple bodies in there, which the part design at this time doesn't support. The reason why I want to use multiple bodies is because to add more shape and texture to the barrel that we're modeling. So in the part, we're going to be using the part loft to loft through sections of that barrel, and we're going to be using also the Boolean operations. I'm also going to be using something called a Lattice 2 workbench. And the only reason why I'm using this is to create something called a polar array. Now this works so much more faster than something like from the draft workbench, or even if we're doing in a part design workflow. So this is installed through Tools and Add-on Manager. We can find it in there. So let's start our sketching over in the Sketcher. And what we're going to do is first sketch the cross section of the barrel and create a new sketch along the XY plane and hit OK. So now on the Sketcher, if we think about the cross section of a barrel through the middle part, then basically it's just two circles. So we're going to determine the size of this through these two circles. I'm going to hit escape to get the mouse pointer back and set some diameter to these circles. So we come into the diameter and we're constrained by diameter. First one we're going to set to about 80 millimeters. And this one we're going to set to something like, I'll go for 70 millimeters there. So if I extruded this, it will just be a ring, or if I created another one of these and lofted through there, just all in size, then we'll get the barrel shape. But we don't want that. What we want to do is create the individual panels of the barrel. So for that, I'm going to need some construction geometry. So I'm going to create a line from this point up to this point and make sure it connects to this outer ring. And we're going to do the same in here from this point and come out to the outer ring. And these two I'm going to convert to construction geometry. I can use the tool from the toolbar, or can come up to sketch geometries and come up to toggle construction geometry. That means that this sketch is only used for support. You won't see it outside of the sketch. If we hit close, you'll see that we just have two rings. The next thing I'm going to do is set an angle between here. And this will make the cross sections, because we're going to trim out all these circles and just leave something like this in here. So we set angle by clicking on one line and then the other and use the angle constraint. Now if we're revolving this around here, then it's 360 degrees. So our angle, say if we had 36, then we need 10 of these sections to revolve it to 10 sections around this to get our end result. If you don't want to do the maths, then we just do 360 degrees and then divide by how many we want to say. Let's go 12 and then hit OK. And then we get our 30 degrees. That's in there. We've now created a section ready to be trimmed. So I'm going to trim away these two circles. So using the trim tool, or up to sketch geometries and trim edge, and we'll trim away both the outer circles like so. We now got the construction geometry and two arcs. And we'll finish this by adding a line between these 2 points. I've got the auto constraints on, so you can see we've got the auto constraints and avoid redundant auto constraints. And we'll attach a line to here. This starts to close the sketch, and we finally close the sketch from this one. We may go into actual redundant constraint here, so close that there, and that's because we've got this constraint. Just select it and hit delete. Now we have a fully closed sketch, and if I close, you can see that there. If I look down from the top, we've got this now, and rotated around, this will be the individual sections. We haven't quite finished because we're going to add some detail to this. Go into the sketch and just come in. I'm going to fill it off, these edges. I'm going to use this one here, the constraint preserving sketch fillet. What this allows me to do is keep these constraints in here whilst I add the two fillets. So we add a fillet here and a fillet here. You can see we've got this point here at the top here. These are still constrained, but we need to fully constrain the sketch, so I hit escape and use the two arcs, these two here, and make them equal. You can see we still got problems here, so I'm going to take this point, make sure it's connected to this line with a point on object constraint, and make sure the other side is the same as well. So come over to this other side and we'll just give it a pull to the side, see where it is. Control Z that, and then use this point on this line and point on object constraint. These two are equal, so we just need one constraint, which is the radius. I click on this one here and come up and set, we can set a diameter if we want, but we'll set a radius on that one of around about 1 millimeter and hit enter. So we've got that there. We can close that now, and we've got our sketch ready to be lofted, but we need more profiles to loft. For that, I'm going to come over to the sketch and hit edit and duplicate section. We'll create another sketch now, and it's laying on top of this one, so I'm going to send this one upwards or downwards, it doesn't matter. So click on that sketch, come into the placement and come into the position. And we're looking along the Z axis. So the Z axis is going straight up. And we'll place something like 60 millimeters along the Z axis. And you can see how that's moved there. It's moved straight up. Now that's up the top there, what we're going to do is look at this from the top. Now, if we try to loft through this, we'll just get a straight loft, and it'd just be like an extrude. We need to curve this way. So come into the new sketch, double click it, and you can see how that's laying basically in the same line as the other one. All we need to do is just change these millimeters. So our diameter, we're going to set this one to say 60 millimeters and set this one to 70 millimeters. So I've taken off 10 mil off of each of them. And that pulls that offline there. We can go a bit further to make more of a curvature, but let's close that. Now if I look at the top, we can see how those are positioned. I now want to take this one, this top cross section. This is the middle cross section of the barrel. This is the top cross section, and duplicate that one. And we're going to put it down the bottom. Select it and go to edit, duplicate selection. Now we've got the other one there. And it's a case of just coming down to the position and looking at the Z axis. And rather than 60, we're going minus 60. Click off. And now move this over, we can see we've got those there. And we zoom out, we can see how those are arranged. I click on right, you can see that curvature there. So this is now ready for lofting. Remember, we've got an angle I think that allows for 12 rotations of these. So this is going to be one panel. So let's loft through this, coming over to the part workbench. And we're going to use the Loft Tool, this one here, or at part and Loft. I always show the drop downs because the icons on the toolbar can be placed anywhere and it will differ depending on how you arrange those toolbars. We've got these sketches now. If we click on them, they select. So you can see them selected in green on the right hand side here. These have got to be in order, so we loft from top to the bottom or bottom to the top, whatever way around you want to go. So let's click on this one, sketch 001. That's our top one. The next one will be sketch. See them highlighted in green, that one's highlighted in green. And the next one, that's highlighted in green. That's our bottom one. Make sure it's a solid, we don't need it to be a shell. Ruled surface means that when we loft through these, it will be a straight loft, which is not what we want. So we get more of a triangle rather than a curved effect. Closed will attempt to bring the loft back around, which we don't want. Hit OK, and we've got our sections of the barrel. So this is the first section of the barrel that we're going to create. And we're going to rotate this around this way. So now we've created that, let's have a look at how we can rotate this around. So we have our barrel section there. We can see the sketches underneath, so we can come in and highlight those by shift selecting them. Shift click on one and shift click on the other and press the space bar. That makes those sections hidden. So we get a better view of what the barrel will look like. Now we need to create a circular pattern of this. There are many ways of doing this. If we was in the part design, then we would use the polar array. If we was, well, we're in the part, we can come over to the art workbench and use the array tools there. They can be a bit slow, but there is a fantastic workbench that we can use these in that's super fast and be able to do this quite quickly. We could even use an assembly workbench by creating copies of these and connecting them up, but that's going to take quite a long time. I've already got the Lattice 2 workbench installed, and I'm going to come over to the part and the Lattice 2. You can install this from the Tools add-on manager if you haven't got it. We're going to be using something called the polar array. And this is a super fast array for this workbench. This workbench allows you to work with arrays of placements and is specially optimized for that. We're going to first select the top face of our loft. So select that top face. Then come up to Lattice 2, Polar Array, and just select the top one here, Polar Array. At the moment it's saying it's not attached, but it's placed it on the plane Loft Face 7. And our Polar Array has been placed over here. If we select Internal CS, that will place it on top of that face. But this isn't the arrangement that we want. We actually want it basically in the center to allow for this to be rotated around. To do that, let's come over to where it says attach with model internal CS, highlight where it says plane and delete that. So we've got nothing at the moment. Click the plane so it's saying selecting and select this outer edge, like so. This has moved and now we can choose something like concentric, and that places it in the middle there. So that's the middle where we'll be rotating this around. You can see internal CS places there, and now we've got the concentric because we've selected a curved edge, and that'll place it there. Hit OK. Now we've got that placed, all we need to do is place this object against this array. Make sure nothing's selected and select the loft. Now Control select the polar array. Come up to the Lattice 2, and what we need to do is come down to the populate with copies and then populate with copies. We've placed all those around there like so. So we've created a circle of panels. We've got the original here, which if we come in and span this out, we can see the loft is sitting here. Just click it and press the spacebar. We don't need that anymore. If we have problems with this populate polar array with loft and it doesn't look right, what we can do is come down and have a look and see where it's saying referencing here under the populate copies. It says origin. If we drop this down and click on first item, then you can see our arrangement has changed and these should now be in a line. So if you have troubles with that, you can use that. But we don't have the right number of copies that are going around here. Now let's come over to the populate polar array with Loft, drill into it and look at the polar array. Come down, we can see the number of elements here is 7. We can't edit this, it's read only. But if we come down further, we'll find that there is a count. Here it is here. And we can change this. So we just increase this up to 12 and hit Control R, or just click off. And we can see that we've created the right amount of items in our array. And they've all fitted nicely there. So we've got the starts of our barrel. We can now come out and go back to the part workbench. And let's have a look at our populate polar array with lofts. Let's click on that polar array there and press the spacebar just to hide that and just collapse the tree view. Let's work on the top and bottom. So I'm going to create a circle that goes in here. And for that, we open this up and look at our original loft. Let's open this up and look at the sketch. And if I press the space bar, we can see that that sketch has become visible and it sits there, and we can get some dimensions off of here. So I'm going to double click that, and we know the outer dimension here, bring this around, and if we look at the arrow where that points, we can see which arc that is. The outer diameter is 70 millimeters and the inner one is 60. So we need a circle that's 60 millimeters. Let's close that. So we could use a sketch, or we could just use, say, a cylinder to place the circle in there. It's up to you what one you want to use. Let's just go for a cylinder for one. Actually, let's do both of them. Let's do a cylinder for one and a sketch for the other. So we can use a cylinder there, and you can see it's placed in the middle. And we click on the cylinder, and this works in radius. So 30 millimeters there. That will just create that circle in there, that cylinder. And we can transform that, right click, transform, and bring that up to the top and decide where that's going to sit. Maybe a bit thick at the moment, so we set the height something like 5 mil. And we can take that cylinder and right click, transform, and place it into position. So I'm just going to place it in the top there. I can clone that, or if I want to do this via sketch, I can come around to the other side and we'll just use the top for reference over in the sketcher. Actually, let's not bother, let's just do it on the normal plane, so make sure nothing's selected and create a sketch along the XY plane. Okay, and that's gone in there. I didn't pick the XY plane, let's try that one again. Let's delete that. New sketch, XY plane, okay, that's better. So you can see that's gone in the middle, and we use a section view for it to sketch, view section, or this tool here. And again, we just create basically a circle in here. Set the diameter of this circle, 60 millimeters. Hit close, you see that sketch is sitting in there. What I'll do is click on the sketch, come over to the placement, go to the position, and move it along the Z so it comes out the top. Well, it's coming out the bottom there because we're upside down. So let's bring it up out the top. And we'll just use the part workbench. Let's go back to the part workbench because that allows us to extrude this. Click on the sketch, use the extrude, and extrude it, say 5 millimeters. Hit enter. And we've got the top of that. And all we need to do is click on the extrude, right click, transform, and bring this down into position, like so. And hit OK. Now we've got those in there they must be touching this barrel. So if you want it slightly bigger, if you want to push it down further, then you're going to have to create it slightly bigger, because we're going to take all of those and union them together. So the next thing I'm going to create are the rings. So there are a number of ways again of doing this. We could use, say, a tube, and we'll set the outer radius to, if I can remember rightly, I think this was 30 millimeters and about here was 40 millimeters. So let's go for 60 just to get an idea of where that is. So it's in the middle. So we'll go for 40 mil on there. So you can see that ring there. And we'll go, say, 45 in a radius of 39. And we'll just adjust this down to where we see fit. So we can create basically a ring like that, as long as it's intersecting or sitting on this geometry, this shape here, then we should be all good for 3D printing. And well, let's set the height as well. We can set the height there. We've got 10 millimeters, so we can go something like 12 to make it a bit wider if we want. Actually, 10's looking quite good, so let's go for 10. So we have the ring that's going around there. Let's hit OK. Again, we can use a sketch. Say let's place a sketch upon here, just to get its placement. So using a sketcher, make sure the top's selected, and new sketch, flat face, that sits on top of there. And we can create some circles that come out and go to the places that we want. So this ring may want to come, say, slightly in, so it sits something like that, and hit close. So we've got that one there, and we can use the part workbench and extrude that up to, say, around about 3 millimeters, like so. So we've got a ring that sits on top, and we can add some more detail to that if we want. And I'm going to actually change that. You can see I haven't fully constrained it, but that's fine. So I'm going to bring this, say, just out a bit more, and bring this out like so. Let's do some constraints in there if we want. And we'll change this extrude to go forward, say, 5 millimeters, like so. So we can use the sketcher as well. We can add extra detail if I wanted another ring and remove it from here to, say, make an inner ring. That's quite easy to do. But we're getting the idea of how we can actually do this quite easily. And with that extrude, what I'm going to do is basically just come in, click it, edit, duplicate selection. We only want extrude 1. So uncheck all of the rest, so uncheck that sketch 04, unchecked it all, out to that extrude, and hit OK. And we've got the extrude 2, which we can right click and transform. And move this down. So that's into position, and OK. And I may want to take, say, that tube and duplicate that again as well. Edit, duplicate selection, got the tube, right click, transform, and we can place that into position somewhere like that. So now we've got a very quick and simple barrel. Last thing we need to do is basically just join this all up. So we've got all the individual parts, and one suggested things that you need to do over in the Lattice 2 is actually downgrade your polar pattern. So we click on that one, and we've got something called the parametric downgrades. So come out to the Lattice 2, you can't find it on your toolbar, parametric downgrade, and we can downgrade to leaves, to solids, etc. I'm going to downgrade it to leaves. So we've got those in there. And now over in the part workbench, we can take all of those, shift select all of those, and use the union tool. So this is just a little side note if you're having problems trying to fusion this object together. I've put this in a state where it will cause an error. So if I take all of these, and this is something that you may get, and try to fusion these together, then we end up with, well, we've just got these two rings in, so something's gone wrong here. The best way to understand what's gone wrong is come in and start doing them by sections. So I'm going to first take the barrel itself, this bit, and take the top and bottom cylinders. So the top or the bottom, whichever one that is, and this one. So I've got two of those. So we've got all of those, and we fusion these in stages. So we do the first union, bring those together. We're absolutely fine. We get the fusion down here. And then let's have a look at something else. So let's have a look at the top and bottom rings and the fusion. So those three, and union those together. And you can see, well, we've got some interesting problems here, and it's probably a reason because this is not connected properly to the top. So we just delete that last fusion, keeping the one that was successful. And we could either come in and just try the rings on that one, so selecting both those tubes and the fusion and seeing if we can do it with that one. And everything's alright, so it's definitely those two extrudes. And it's probably just a case of basically taking the extrude, transforming it, and making sure it's connected properly. So I've taken the bottom one, I'm just going to push it inwards. I thought this was the top one actually when I selected it. So I'm just going to push it slightly inwards on the bottom. Or if we want to be more of that, we can come down to the extrude and use the Z and move that in and out there. So we'll just push that and make sure it's kind of embedded into that barrel. And we'll do the same with the other one. So this one here, and change the Z so it's embedded in at the top as well. Something like that. And this is probably the problem, so I'll take these two and the fusion and just create a union of those as well. And everything's okay. So the problem was that this was too far away from the ends. And we get the successful fusion that we need. And though it's made up of basically a number of fusions, it still doesn't matter. It's just fused together in stages. So that's the union. You can do that if you're using something like a cut as well, or the intersection. And it's just taking that in stages, seeing which ones work, and then moving forwards. And that's fusioned all those together. So we have our barrel that we can click on, File, Export. And I'm going to export it as a barrel. So barrel STL. Save that. And if I import that back in, and hide the original fusion, we can see we've got our barrel there. That's all ready to go. So all I've done is just imported that barrel in just to show you the import of the STL file and to show you what it looks like when it's been exported out. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Hope that's answered the question regarding making barrels, and can't wait to see you again soon in the next video. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe to the site. I also have a Ko-Fi or a coffee site that you can donate to if you so desire, and that's at ko-fi.com/MANG0. I also run a Patreon where you can subscribe and get extra content, and that's at www.patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Any money that's kindly donated will be used to expand the channel. Thanks a lot for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you again soon.